Buried with his enemies, the emperor's final humiliation history is filled with powerful rulers who lived in glory, but met their end in the most unexpected ways. Today we explore one of the most shocking and humiliating deaths of an emperor, a story that shows how even the mightiest can fall from grace. Our story takes us to ancient China, to the reign of Emperor Yang of Sui, who ruled from 604 to 618 CE. This emperor was known for his grand ambitions, massive construction projects, and ruthless pursuit of power. But his story ended in a way that no emperor would ever want to be remembered. Emperor Yang inherited one of the most powerful dynasties in Chinese history. The Sui dynasty had unified China after centuries of division. Yang had everything: absolute power, vast wealth, and millions of subjects. But power without wisdom is a dangerous combination. The emperor was obsessed with grandeur. He built the Grand Canal, one of the greatest engineering achievements in history, connecting northern and southern China. But this project came at an enormous human cost. Millions of workers died during its construction. The emperor showed no mercy, demanding results regardless of the price in human lives. Yang also launched costly military campaigns to expand his empire. He invaded Korea multiple times, each campaign ending in disaster. His armies were defeated, and hundreds of thousands of soldiers never returned home. The treasury was drained, and the people suffered under crushing taxes to fund these failed wars. As the empire crumbled under the weight of his ambitions, rebellion began to spread across China. Peasants who had nothing left to lose picked up weapons against their emperor. Military generals started defecting, taking their armies with them. The once mighty Sui dynasty was falling apart. In 618 CE, Emperor Yang found himself trapped in Yangzhou, far from his capital. Rebel armies surrounded the city. His own generals had turned against him. The emperor, who once commanded millions, now had only a handful of loyal followers left. The end came swiftly and brutally. General Yuan Huaji, who had once served the emperor faithfully, decided that Yang had to die. In a palace coup, the general and his conspirators stormed the emperor's quarters. Emperor Yang, the man who had controlled the fate of millions, was now completely powerless. But here comes the most shocking part of our story. What happened next was unprecedented in Chinese history. Instead of giving the emperor an honorable death or proper burial, General Yuan Huaji made a decision that would horrify people for centuries to come. The general ordered that Emperor Yang be buried alongside his greatest enemies, the very rebels and criminals he had executed during his reign. This was the ultimate humiliation. In Chinese culture, proper burial and ancestral worship were sacred. To be buried with one's enemies was considered the worst possible fate. But the humiliation didn't end there. The emperor's body was wrapped in common cloth, not the silk and gold befitting an emperor. No elaborate tomb was built. No treasures were buried with him. Instead, he was thrown into a mass grave with common criminals and traitors. This burial was a deliberate insult that went against every tradition of imperial China. Emperors were considered sons of heaven, divine beings who deserved elaborate tombs that took years to build. Emperor Yang got none of this. His final resting place was indistinguishable from that of the lowest criminals. The message was clear. This emperor had fallen so far from grace that he deserved no better treatment than his enemies. General Yuan Huaji wanted to show the world that even the mightiest emperor could end up as nothing more than a common corpse in an unmarked grave. News of this unprecedented burial spread across China like wildfire. People were shocked and horrified. Some saw it as divine justice. The emperor who had shown no mercy to others received no mercy in death. Others saw it as a violation of natural order that would bring terrible consequences. The psychological impact of this burial was enormous. It shattered the myth of imperial invincibility. If an emperor could be buried like a common criminal, then perhaps the mandate of heaven could be lost. This event contributed to the final collapse of the Sui dynasty and the rise of the Tang dynasty. But why did General Yuan Huaji choose such an extreme form of humiliation? Some historians believe it was personal revenge. The emperor had executed many of the general's friends and family members during his paranoid reign. Others think it was a political statement, a way to show that the old order was completely dead. The story doesn't end with the burial. Legend says that strange things began happening around the emperor's grave. People reported seeing ghostly figures and hearing screams in the night. Whether true or not, these stories added to the emperor's posthumous humiliation. Emperor Yang's reign became a cautionary tale told for generations. Chinese historians wrote about him as an example of what happens when power corrupts completely. His story was used to teach future rulers about the importance of benevolence and wisdom. The contrast between Emperor Yang's life and death is striking. He lived in golden palaces and died in disgrace. He commanded armies and ended up buried with criminals. He sought immortal glory and achieved eternal shame. This story teaches us several important lessons. First, power without compassion leads to destruction. Emperor Yang had unlimited power, but used it cruelly, ultimately turning his own people against him. Second, how we treat others often determines how we are treated in the end. The emperor who showed no mercy to his subjects received no mercy from his generals. Third, true greatness is not measured by the grandeur of one's life, but by the legacy one leaves behind. Emperor Yang's legacy is one of cruelty, failed ambitions, and ultimate humiliation. In the end, Emperor Yang of Sui got what many consider the worst possible fate for any ruler, to be remembered not for his achievements but for his failures, not for his glory, but for his shame. His final humiliation of being buried with his enemies became more famous than any of his grand construction projects or military campaigns. This extraordinary tale from ancient China reminds us that no matter how high we rise, how much power we accumulate, or how invincible we might seem, our actions will ultimately determine our legacy. Emperor Yang learned this lesson too late, and his story serves as a powerful reminder that even emperors are not above the consequences of their choices. The emperor who once ruled millions ended his days as just another body in an unmarked grave, buried alongside the very people he had once condemned to death.